The Hulu original series, Furious, is coming to Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus July 27th.
There are 3 victims we know of. The suspect is female, white, late 20s.
Female serial killer.
Kill for power, control. I believe there's a deeper motivation here.
You have no idea who you're dealing with, and you are going to end up dead.
I've been waiting for you.
Watch the Hulu original series, Furious, on July 27th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Welcome back to another episode of One Bad Night, a Melanin Mystery series. And if this is your first time finding me, welcome to the Cookout Cousin. I'm Tiffany, aka Detective Lightskinn, and around here on One Bad Night, I tell the stories of complete strangers whose lives crossed paths for just a moment and nothing was ever the same again. Because sometimes all it takes is one bad decision, one wrong turn, one chance encounter, and in this specific case, 3 lives were changed forever. Now, y'all know with One Bad Night, I kind of skipped the announcements and we just go straight ahead and jump right in. But I just wanted to give a very, very short and brief announcement section and to thank y'all pretty much for just joining me for another episode, to make sure y'all are following the podcast, sharing with anybody with ears, and leaving a 5-star review. That's all I got, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and get into this case. This one, y'all, oh my gosh, it just did something to me. A young and bright future was cut down so fast and so abruptly, it really made my stomach hurt. So this week we are headed to Chicago. This is somewhere I am trying to go to do a food tour, okay? TikTok got me in a chokehold. Now, we are talking about Benji Wilson. And at just 17 years old, look, y'all, he was the best high school basketball player in the entire country. And I'm not exaggerating. He was named the best, capital THE. The future was calling his name. But we got to back up, because before the scholarships, before the NBA, before he even got the chance to see just how far his talent could take him, his life was cut short. And the saddest part, Benji wasn't even the only teenager who lost his future that day. Because one chance encounter between 3 boys who had never met before would leave one dead and send 2 others to prison before they were even old enough to legally drink, rent a car, a hotel room. So what I want y'all to do, cousins, grab your snacks, secure your bonnet and your edges, and let me tell y'all what happened. So y'all listen. It is November 20th, 1984. Like I said, we are in Chi-Town. And look, Benji, he is chasing after his girlfriend. Her name was Jatan Rush. They are into it. And before y'all start rolling your eyes talking about, Lord, not another teenage argument, hold up just a little bit, because this one had a little bit more seasoning on it. These weren't just 2 high school kids dating. These were 2 high school kids with a whole baby. So yeah, emotions, they emotioning. Now, Benji had actually skipped hanging out with his boys at lunch because he was trying to be a good man, Savannah, trying to get his girl to talk to him. He wasn't trying to argue with her. He was just trying to fix whatever they had going on. So they're walking up South Vincennes Avenue, right? And it's a little afternoon, and that's when this shit just goes to freaking hell. So coming toward them are 2 crash dummies. One is 16-year-old William Moore, but we gonna call him Billy because William sounds like he pays taxes and minds his business. Billy clearly didn't either. And with him is his 15-year-old sidekick, Omar Dixon. Now, from about every article, documentary, and interview I've been through, everybody tells this part pretty much the same. Benji accidentally bumps into Billy. Immediately was like, hey, my bad, man. Now, y'all, if somebody bumps into me and apologizes, what are we still mad about? 2 seconds later, I don't forget it happened. But apparently, Billy and his little side quest partner felt different. Words get exchanged. Then Omar decides today is the perfect day to audition for Dumb and Dumber and starts trying to run Benji's pockets. And Benji ain't having that shit. You not about to just casually dig through his jeans like you shopping at TJ Maxx. Well, he like, hell no. And that's when Billy pulls out a .22 caliber revolver, fires twice. Both bullets hit Benji. At 12:37 p.m., somebody calls 911. And this is the part, oh my God, This pissed me off so freaking bad. Do y'all know it took almost 40 minutes for an ambulance to get to this baby? 40 minutes. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if somebody has been shot twice, I'm expecting sirens before I could blink. Not enough time to watch a half episode of The Golden Girls. This baby is lying on the sidewalk bleeding while everybody around him can do nothing but wait. And can you imagine how much pain he's in? 40 minutes? So when the sorry ass EMTs finally get there, they're following the dumbass city of Chicago's protocol at the time, which meant they had to take him to the nearest city hospital. So Benji is rushed to St. Bernard Hospital in Inglewood. But this, again, I'm still pissed off even further because St. Bernard wasn't even equipped to handle trauma cases. They didn't have a trauma unit. So I don't know who the fuck bright idea for was to make this protocol. Don't even answer that because I'm already pissed off. So the shots had severed his aorta and his liver had been punctured. But it gets worse, y'all. I said the ambulance was called at 12:47. Took them 40 minutes. Do y'all know this poor boy, they made him sit for another 2 hours. Just let him sit there. He was not even put into surgery until 3:14 that afternoon. So this young man has been suffering for hours. Now, coming out the surgery, doctors initially like, okay, he's stable. So you know, the family's like, okay, stable. Stable is good. They're holding on to that. But as time starts passing, the updates start getting worse. And then they're saying that he only has a 50-50 chance of surviving. And this is where the story just fucked me up. So Benji's mama, Mary, she was an ER nurse. And, you know, that's like a blessing and a curse at this point because while everybody is, you know, praying and hoping, she knows exactly what she's looking at. She's like, his feet are cold. She knows oxygen hadn't been getting to his brain and she knows what the signs mean. So Benji's on life support. And y'all, when I tell y'all, Mary had to make a decision that no parent should ever have to make. She knew her son was not going to survive and have any quality of life. So she made the decision, the heartbreaking decision, to remove him from life support. Benji passed away around 5 a.m. on November 21st, 1984 at just 17 years old. Didn't even get a chance to turn 18. And if that was not enough, the strength that this lady has, Mary walks outside the hospital. They said there were news cameras everywhere because Benji was a big deal. And we're going to get into that, but he was a big deal. Now, when she walks out, there's news cameras everywhere. At this point, baby, leave me alone. I just lost my baby. But Mary, she stops and she gave one statement that still gave me chills. And I actually watched the news interview. She said, quote, "It's not how long you live, but how well you live." Now, we got to rewind this thing because, like I said, before Benji became national news and before people knew him as a number one high school basketball player whose life was cut short, he was just Benji, a son, a brother, a boyfriend, a daddy, a friend. And from everything that I've read and watched, people fucked with him. And like, he was really that dude. Like, not that, you know, fake everybody loved him because, you know, he died. No, they say they really loved him. Like, they loved being around him. So let me introduce you to Benji. His name was Benjamin Benji Wilson Jr. He was born March 18th, 1967 to Mary and Benjamin Wilson Sr. So he was his daddy's first child. His mom had a older son, and then they also ended up having a total of 5 boys. So Mary was a registered nurse, like I said. Benjamin Sr. worked for the Postal Service, and even though his parents ended up getting divorced in 1974, Benji grew up on Chicago's South Side in the Chatham neighborhood. Now, back then, they said it was considered a nice middle-class neighborhood. And they said from the time he was little, basketball just had him in a chokehold. And they said they didn't even have basketball courts in his neighborhood. But they said them kids was outside turning metal trash cans into basketball goals because, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. And they said this boy had a basketball in his hands at all times. The teachers in the school would be aggravated because he was bouncing this ball all the time, right? So, but by 7th grade, this wasn't just his hobby anymore. This boy ate, slept, breathed, and thought about basketball. And when you live like that, you become what you think about all day long. Do with what you will with that information. Now, his parents eventually sent him to one of the top-rated basketball camps because then it was obvious that he didn't just have regular talent. When he got to Simeon Vocational High School as a freshman, baby, he was nice, but he wasn't on varsity. But somewhere between sophomore and junior year, when I said the Lord reached down and said, let me stretch you out real quick, yeah, Benji went from being about 5'10" to almost 6'7". Like, that is crazy. Can you imagine going back to school after summer break and one of your classmates done grew damn near a whole foot? I'd be like, what the hell is you feeding that boy? My God. Now, mix that kind of height with the skills he already had. Baby, he was not just good anymore. He was dangerous. And here's a little random fact. Before R. Kelly, that R. Kelly, him and Benji were actually friends. Like, they played basketball together, all that stuff. Crazy, right? Now, during his junior year, Benji meets Jatan Rush, the one we were just talking about who was there. Now, y'all know how teenage love goes. You swear up and down, baby, that is my husband, that's my wife, my soulmate. You done picked out baby names and y'all can't even rent a car yet. Everything feels so permanent when you're 17. But then life got real. Jatan got pregnant, and the summer before Benji's senior year, she gave birth to their son, Brandon. And why this boy didn't tell nobody, typical teenage behavior. That's how you know teenagers don't be thinking. He didn't tell nobody till the baby was already here. So she had their son, Brandon. But we got to remember, okay, so Benji had just been named this same summer that he welcomed his son, the number 1 high school basketball player in the entire country. One kid from Chicago. Scholarships are coming in. People are talking NBA. Nike reached out to him about wanting him to attend their camp. Like, this young man was a celebrity before he even graduated high school. Like, he was like LeBron before LeBron. So now he's trying to juggle being a teenager, being the biggest basketball prospect in America, being a brand new daddy, trying to graduate, trying to be a boyfriend, trying to just be everything. And that's a lot for somebody whose brain ain't even done developing yet. Everybody was just like, he was trying to just be everything, be a good dad, keep up with basketball, make things work in his relationship. But, especially when you got all that going on, that's a lot for an adult, let alone a child. And that pressure eventually starts turning into arguments and tension between him and Jatan. These arguments start spilling over in the school because they said sis wasn't paying him no man. She was like, you do your thing. I got the baby. Just leave me alone. He's like, no, I want to see my baby. I want to see you. And it was just not working. So these arguments, they start spilling over in the school. They said one day Benji and Jatan got into an argument, and during the commotion, they said a teacher tried to grab Benji. They said he hit Mr. Young. Ooh, it was a mess. He got suspended for 4 or 5 days. But nobody could have imagined just a few days later, he would have walked out of that school and never came back. But circling back to Miss Mary, we talking about the strength that lady had, because it could not have been me. They said just 6 hours after her son passed away, she was standing at Simeon High School giving a speech to the students. 6 hours later, I'd be under my bed. Don't knock, don't call, do not text, don't send a carrier pigeon. I don't want to see anybody. I just lost my baby. I can't even begin to imagine bearing the baby that I carried, nurtured, loved on for 17 years, and not just losing him, but losing him like this, so suddenly and violently, and it was legit for no reason. I don't wish that kind of pain on anybody. My worst enemy, I don't wish it on. Now, like I said, we do have to back this thing up a few hours because it's time to meet dumbass number 1 and dumbass number 2, or as I like to call them, the nickel brain bandits. Now, we don't know a whole lot about either of their childhoods, but I'll give y'all what I found. So let me start with Omar Dixon. Omar was born November 4th, 1969 in Chicago. I couldn't find the name of his parents, but it was noted that his mama was a jazz singer. Now, but his granddaddy, y'all might actually know his name. His name was Willie Dixon. And Willie Dixon was one of the biggest names in Chicago blues. We're talking songwriter, bassist, producer, an absolute legend. If you've ever heard songs like Hoochie Coochie Man, Spoonful, or Little Red Rooster, that's Willie Dixon. He wrote songs that artists like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. Did y'all watch Cadillac Records? Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones would later record. So Omar had come from a family like with some real musical history. And I'm sure that's you came from a family of Black excellence and this is where you ended up. Right. Okay. So, and like I said, he actually had a very good upbringing from what I came across. But somewhere along the way, though, he allegedly became affiliated with the Gangster Disciples. How you went from that, but I don't know. Now, let's slide on over to Billy because, again, I couldn't really find much info about his parents either. But by all accounts, good upbringing. Matter of fact, they said that boy could play him some baseball. He was a shortstop, and they said he was so good. But when he was 16, his father ended up dying from cancer. And that just sent his whole life into a tailspin. I can understand. Like I said, y'all know I'm going through it, and I had her for almost 40 years, so I understand. But I also understand that you can't let certain circumstances dictate your whole life. I'm not going to go throw my life down the drain because I lost somebody I love. Now, somewhere after that, he also allegedly became affiliated with the Gangster Disciples. Now, I know what y'all wondering. Tiffany, how in the hell did those two even cross paths with Benji, right? I'm so glad you asked, cousin. So see, what had happened was Billy and Omar, they both went to Calumet High School. And on November 20th, they decided they ain't need school that day. It could wait. Wasn't important. So they skipped school. They headed over to Simeon. Now, Billy had actually stolen a 22 caliber revolver from underneath his auntie mattress. And why, you want to know? Because apparently his cousin went to Simeon. Somebody had stolen $10 from her. And you know, this is the 80s, so $10 was a lot of money. And Billy decided he was going to play Captain Save a Cousin over $10. You went and grabbed a gun over $10. He was ready to be out here committing felonies, okay? See how this goes? But by the time that Billy and Omar actually got to Simeon, the whole situation had already been worked out peacefully. So it wasn't no nothing. This had been your sign to just go home. But no, the universe and gave y'all an exit ramp and y'all missed it on purpose. So Billy, he knew a girl at Simeon. Her name was Erica Murphy. So he links up with Erica, and the three of them start walking to grab some lunch. So while they're walking up South Vincennes Avenue, Erica, she stops at a little spot to grab something to eat. Meanwhile, these two neighborhood knuckleheads stayed outside waiting on her. While Erica's inside, that's when everything went down. She says she heard the gunshots. She runs outside, and she did stay until the ambulance arrived because she knew Benji as well. Now, meanwhile, the dynamic dummies had already taken off running. Later, Erica gets home, and guess who's at home at her house waiting on her? Billy, dumbass. This is the part that got me. So like I said, Erica was friends with both Billy and Benji. She said she looked at that man and was like, do you know who the hell you just shot? Like, do you know what you just took from this city? Like Benji was the golden boy. Like they said they looked at him like the messiah of, he was the next, he was going to be the next big thing. Like, and they were so proud of him. Now, before I get all while all this is happening, the news is already reporting of the shooting. And around midnight, baby, the police came knocking on Erica's door, ready to haul Billy down to the station. Now, cousins, y'all know somebody absolutely saying like they were trying to win a Grammy because the detectives knew exactly where to pull up. And by the end, they had already had Omar picked up too. Now, about 4 or 5 that morning, detectives had a written confession from both of them. And around that same time, that's when they got the call that Benji had passed on to glory. Now, these two brain cell borrowers had initially been arrested for attempted robbery and attempted murder. And in their written confessions, both of them admitted robbery was the original plan, and then Billy admits to shooting Benji. Now, with Benji's death, those charges have become attempted robbery and murder. Now, both boys, they're being held without bond while prosecutors decided if they would be charged as adults. Now, here's something that really put Chicago into perspective, because Benji wasn't just another homicide victim. He was the 120th homicide victim between the ages of 11 and 20 in Chicago in 1984. So we have to put that into perspective, because this is not the overall number. This is just the number from 11 to 20. And 120 in less than a year, because the year hadn't even been over yet, that is a lot. And it's heartbreaking. So the medical examiner concluded that he died from the 222 revolver wounds. Benji was bent over after being shot in the groin, and then he was hit in the chest. He knew Benji was bent over by the angle of the second gunshot wound. Now, Miss Mary actually held Benji's viewing on November 23rd, 1984 at Simeon High School. That was so fast. That was only barely 2 days. It was an open casket. He was laid to rest wearing his basketball uniform. Do y'all know they said that wake lasted almost 12 hours? 12 hours. Honey, what are we doing? Baby, do y'all remember Aretha Franklin's funeral was almost 8 hours? I thought that was insane. Honey, I tell y'all, I got a hot 2 hours in me. That's it. I'm clocking out after that. I'm sorry. Everybody do not need to get up there and tell a story. I can't handle it. Let's wrap this up. Let's get to the repast. Somebody need to pass me a piece of chicken. Turn on the cha-cha slide. I have done all the crying that I can do. I'm ready to celebrate the life that they lived. I already told my cousin about this. Look, you got a hot 2 hours out of me. That's it. That's all I got for you. Now, the funeral was actually held November 24th, 1984, the very next day. And when I tell y'all, Chicago showed up, they showed up and they showed out. Now, the eulogy was actually delivered by Reverend Jesse Jackson. Yes, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, not a Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. That's the kind of impact Benji had on that city. And it was so crazy because Jesse Jackson was like, I remember watching him just days before, on the news and on the TV, and now I'm here with his eulogy. That was so, oh my God, that just was so heartbreaking. Now, they said once everybody got to the cemetery for the burial site, they have hours. It was supposed to close at a certain time. Maybe they said they couldn't even close on time because it was just so many people. They said people just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And I guess the cemetery was like, well, I guess we just staying open. But this caught me off guard. So I told y'all that Benji was cool with R. Kelly. R. Kelly sang at the graveside. Don't get distracted now, y'all. I know. This was 1984, before the headlines, before the documentaries, and At this time, it was just Robert, a neighborhood kid, saying goodbye to his friend. Then Miss Mary, they said Miss Mary asked if she could see her baby one more time before they lowered that casket. And they said folks just went crazy. The strength that this lady had, because when I tell y'all, just take me out, because just ain't no way. I would have just been laid right out in the cemetery. Y'all would have had to sprinkle a little water on me and fan me with the church program. I'm trying to tell y'all. But this lady, she was really made of something different. Black women, we are built for it tough. That's because we're God's favorite. Argue with your mama. I don't care. It's favor ain't fair. Now, let's go on. We're going to fast forward and get into the trial of the two numbskulls, because that's what we're going to call this chapter. Now, the trial ends up kicking off in 1985, but y'all know before the trial even started, it was a shit show. The defense attorneys wanted Billy and Omar's trial separated because they didn't want one pointing finger at the other in front of the same jury. But remember, these two little distinguished delinquents had already been charged. So at this point, they had decided to charge them as adults. The assistant state's attorney, his name was Kenneth Malatesta. Basically, he said, nah, y'all want to make grown folks decisions? Now it's time for grown folks consequences. I can't really say nothing about it because it's true. Now, the state star witness was your time. And let's talk about, can you imagine, the girl is 17, 18. She just lost the father of her child. She got that baby. And she got to get on that witness stand and relive every single second. She identified Billy and Omar. She testified that they tried to rob Benji. She said she heard Omar tell Billy to shoot Benji. The prosecution was not done just yet. They had another witness. This witness was a 15-year-old. His name was Sean Bayless. And Sean testified he watched everything from a store window. He told the jury this, quote, Ben was coming down the street and Omar came up and grabbed his arm and said something to him and pushed Benji. Then I saw the other guy pull out a gun and shoot him. So we got two witnesses already up there telling the same story. One with audio, one without audio, but it's the same story. Now, Billy's attorney, his name was Isaiah Grant. He was like, nah, let me handle this. He ain't let Billy get up on the stand. Instead, he spoke for him. Now, he admitted that Billy shot Benji, but he said that Billy wanted to recant his original confession. Now, here comes the plot twist. Billy claimed he was scared because Benji was 6'8" and about 239 pounds. Matter of fact, Billy said he thought Benji was basically the tallest man walking this earth. And according to Billy, he said Benji bumped into him. They started arguing because he didn't get the apology that he wanted. That's what he said. That's what his problem was. Like, I told the nigga to apologize, and he apologized to me. He said, fuck you. That's caused me to pull out a gun and shoot somebody. But anyway, he said he pulled out the gun, and he said he didn't think he could, take somebody's life. But he said he remembered his granddaddy told him, never pull out a gun if you ain't gonna use it. Now, I've heard that too. How about we just don't pull out no guns? Problem solved. Everybody go home. Or y'all could have fought it out, been done with it. But this is where we are now. So Billy goes on to say, like I said, he said he thought he wasn't capable of killing somebody, but he said it was self-defense. It was either him or Benji, and he chose himself. We'll touch on that in a minute. Billy also tried to throw Omar a lifeline. He was like, look, my friend wasn't even involved. He was just there, but he had nothing to do with this. And he denied they ever even tried to rob Benji. Now, Omar was like, well, shit, if he clearing me, I'm gonna just let him cook. He was like, look, I ain't had nothing to do with that robbery. I ain't had nothing to do with the murder. Matter of fact, when the police came to pick me up about 9 p.m., they was questioning me for hours, and they made me say that stuff. He like, I didn't get to sign the statement until around 4 or 5 the next morning. I didn't say none of that stuff. He was like, I never told him there was a robbery. They pressured me into making a false statement. Now, I know personally people that has happened to, so it's not plausible. However, we have witnesses, more than one. Now, he also testified that he and Billy were standing on Vincennes Avenue when Benji bumped Billy so hard he said Billy bounced off the fence. And he was like, yeah, my friend, he asked him for an apology. But Benji said he ain't on one. And he said, fuck you. And that's when they got to arguing. And Jatan, she tried pulling Benji away. But, he said Benji thought they were, probably about to just throw hands, fight it out, typical shit. So he said the last thing he saw was Benji walking towards Billy. Then he heard 2 shots. Now, after listening to that testimony, the jury basically said, got it, noted, we don't want to hear none of that shit. And ultimately, both were found guilty of murder and aggravated robbery. Now, Omar ends up receiving 30 years, and when I tell y'all, they said his mama cut up in that courtroom, she's up there hooting and hollering, talking about, it's a lie, it's a lie. No, honey, it's not a lie. He did that shit. Billy gets 40 years since he was the one who actually pulls the trigger. Like I said, by the time sentencing day came around, it was a whole situation. I said, and I'm not even mad at Omar's mama because that's your baby. You gonna fight for your kid, but when they wrong, that's a mama's heart for you. But then we also have to understand that there was another mama sitting in that courtroom and her baby was already in the ground. While you can go see your loved one, she can't talk to her baby anymore. And that's the difference. Now, Billy did apologize to the Wilson family. And by every account that I found, it was a heartfelt apology. And I do believe people can be genuinely sorry. But sometimes an apology shows up after the damage and packed up, paid rent, and moved in. Because no matter how heartfelt or sincere or how many tears.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want. Like, all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
Ouch. This knee is killing me, but I can't stop training. The marathon is in 2 weeks.
Let's get on ZocDoc and find a doctor to take a look at that for you.
Okay.
Here's a review. Dr. Craddock really takes his time.
No, I don't have time.
What about Dr. Charles? His patients say he can help find a quick fix, and he's in network.
Great, now we're talking. Book it.
Booked. 1 mile down, 19 to go.
Bring it on.
You've got options. Download the ZocDoc app today.
Years came with it. It could not give Brandon his daddy back. It could not give Mary her son back. It wouldn't give Chicago the basketball star everybody believed was next. But we ain't done. We still got more to unpack. Because before I close this file, y'all know I got one more thing. Because y'all know I'm nosy. So one thing I did appreciate about this trial, the jury never heard that Billy and Omar were allegedly affiliated with the Gangster Disciples. The judge had shut that all the way down, and his reasoning was simple. He said the gang activity had absolutely nothing to do with what happened that day, and he didn't want the jury convicting these boys because they heard the word gang. He wanted them deciding the case based on the case. Now, Billy and Omar's families didn't exactly see it that way. They felt if Benji had been just another kid from Chicago, maybe the sentences would be lighter. But because he was the golden boy, the future NBA, the pride of Simeon in Chicago, they believed there was no way a jury could be completely impartial. Now, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole. Y'all can argue amongst yourselves on that one. Now, let's do what we always do around here. Y'all know I'm Detective Lightskinn, so I got to put on my detective hat. So let's talk about where everybody is at now. We're going to start with Omar. Now, Omar, he wasted absolutely no time filing an appeal. And baby, guess what? He won. His conviction got tossed. And he gets a brand new trial in 1989. I know, right? You thought I'm going to tell you he walked free. No, he did not. They tried him again, found him guilty again, and gave him the exact same 30 years. Imagine going through a whole nother trial just to hear the exact same sentence. Ugh, the stress of everything. Now, Omar did eventually make parole in 2000, 15 years early. Crazy work. Now, if the story ended there, cool. But y'all, it didn't. Because apparently somebody forgot prison was supposed to be educational, which we know in the U.S. they are not rehabilitating shit. Like, I feel like either you got to rehabilitate yourself. You got to have a mindset. Now, while he was still on parole, Omar caught another case in 2007, this time for aggravated battery with a firearm and aggravated discharge of a firearm. Sir. Again, and we still shooting people. At this point, I'm convinced he and accountability had each other blocked, okay? So today, Omar is sitting at Dixon Correctional Facility with another 40-year sentence. His earliest possible parole is 2041. And if that doesn't happen, his projected release date is September 18th, 2044. Child, he got another 18 years. Whew! Still spent your whole life in prison. My God. So he ain't got nowhere to be but count. Now, Billy, his story is hugely different, which shows like the mentality. Billy, he didn't even file an appeal until 1992. Apparently, he didn't realize convictions don't automatically get appealed. Honey pie, that's definitely something your lawyer should have mentioned. Either way, his bill was denied. I didn't care. But he eventually made parole in 2005. Again, very early. Now, I'm going to be fair, because like I tell y'all all the time, if somebody changes, I'm going to say they change. And by all accounts, Billy really did seem to turn his life around. Now, last I heard, or from what I've seen, he worked for an organization helping formerly incarcerated people find jobs and start over. In matter of fact, in 2009, the organization was recognized by the White House. You know, our forever president, President Barack Obama, the one with class, grace, degrees, education, and a wife who'll still check him if necessary. Okay, all right. Now, here's where Billy lost me, though. In 2012, ESPN released their documentary on Benji, and I highly suggest you check it out. It was so good. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It's actually on YouTube because I was having the hardest time trying to log into ESPN. Plus, I was not giving the people $35 to watch one documentary, but it is on YouTube. It's like a 30 for 30, I believe it's called. And this was the first time that Billy publicly spoke about the murder. And maybe because almost 30 years had passed, maybe this is how he genuinely remembered it. Maybe this is how he pictured it in his mind or made it up as he went. I don't know. But he stood 10 toes down, still saying that Benji bumped him. He felt threatened. Stand on that same story. Now, everybody has a right to tell their truth. I'm just letting y'all know that my eyebrow was up the entire interview. Because I'm sitting there side-eyeing the TV like, sir, is this really the hill that we're dying on? Can we have some more sympathy? Can we have some more accountability? Now, let's talk about Miss Mary, because that lady, she refused to stop fighting. In 1985, she sued St. Bernard Hospital for $15 million because Benji did not receive the proper medical care. The hospital eventually settled for an undisclosed amount. And when I tell you her fight actually created some change, Chicago changed its ambulance protocol. And instead of taking trauma victims to simply the nearest hospital, they now have to take victims to the nearest staffed trauma hospital. See? I mean, it's sad as hell that somebody had to lose their life, but at least she has probably saved hundreds of lives, if not thousands, going forward. But sometimes policies don't change until somebody innocent pays the price. And on what would have been Benji's 18th birthday, Miss Mary also collected over 17,000 signatures calling for tougher gun laws in Chicago. And then in 1987, she packed up her babies and moved everybody back to Mississippi. And Miss Mary passed away in 2000. And I just pray that she finally got the peace that this world would not give her and that she was reunited with her baby. Now, let's check in on Jatan and Brandon because life kept moving. So Jatan, she did graduate from Simeon. She went on to Central State University. She crossed Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. She got married. She settled in New York and kept pushing forward. Good for her. Now, Brandon, baby, basketball must have been in his DNA because he became a standout basketball player himself. Played at Riverside Church, Francis Prep, Long Island Lutheran. He earned a scholarship to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore where he played one season, but eventually he traded basketball for a badge. He became a police officer in Port Washington, New York, where he served for 5 years. But then tragedy struck again. Brandon was killed in a single car accident after losing control of his vehicle January 13th, 2022 on the Northern State Parkway in Long Island, New York. He was 37 years old. And I don't know if I mentioned, but Brandon was only 10 weeks old when Benji was murdered in 1984. Right? So that's just a whole lot. So the family has had enough tears for 10 lifetimes. Now, as far as Simeon Vocational School, they never forgot about Benji. To this day, the school's best player wears number 25. And in 2005, a young fella y'all may know as Derrick Rose wore number 25. And he brought Simeon its first state championship since Benji. Because it's almost like Benji finally got to cut down those nets just through somebody else's hands. And y'all, that is the case of One Bad Night Before Greatness. This one sat heavy on me because all of this started over an apology that should have ended the whole interaction. One, my bad, 2 bullets, countless lives changed forever. So if y'all rock with today's episode, just do your girl one favor, hit that follow button, leave your favorite cousin a 5-star review, share Melanin Mysteries with everybody, your mama, cousin, your coworker that's always in your business when they ask you what you're listening to, put them on Detective Lightskinn and that lady at the beauty shop, just everybody. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all down, and I will catch y'all on Monday for another Melanin Mysteries Monday. Until next time, stay safe and don't be out here acting like the distinguished delinquents, okay? Peace out.